So Amber Murray, you are the candidate of the Green Party for the Lethbridge riding. You are in running to become MP of the area. So tell me what the honor is being named the candidate for the Green Party here.
It's a huge honor for me. I've been a Green for a long time, and I am an environmental advocate. I am a proponent of proportional representation, and I stand up for the youth. I'm holding space for young people right now. And what I find when speaking to folks in high school and in university is that they feel very unloved by the electoral system at this point. They feel very disenfranchised, to be quite frank. And I'm holding space for that. I'm holding space for the future. I want to see real change, and I want to be there for folks who believe not just in this area, but in the entire planet as our only home. And that I want the environmental voice to be bigger in the House of Commons.
So what kind of experience do you bring to the table, and what was sort of your motivation making this decision to run as MP? What kind of experience do you bring to the table theoretically if you were to make your way to Ottawa?
Oh, that's a great question, and I think the biggest thing that folks should realize is that this is a job opportunity. It's not just an election, it's a job opportunity. You want someone who has a lot of fresh ideas, you want someone who has a plan, you want someone who has a range of things that they are going to work on, and I have all of those things. Furthermore, I want the job. I want to represent Lethbridge, which I love, and I want to represent a voice that is important here right now. So what I bring is a lot of experience in personnel and project management, particularly out in the landscape. So I've worked in conditions that are highly variable, highly changing, and I believe that's what we are facing right now. I really don't believe that a lot of political experience is necessarily the best thing for representation. I believe that when folks spend a lot of time in office, they seem to think that they have a better idea of what can be done and what should be done than the folks that they're representing. And what I find is they tend to pull back from that part of the job, the representation part. They pull back from being transparent. They pull back from being able to speak and how they're going to communicate with the people that they represent. So we have about 125,000 people in this electoral district, and that's a big job to make sure that you're reaching out to all of those people and that you're giving opportunities for all of them to speak and let them know, or let you know how they're doing as an MP.
And sort of talking about those issues that we're facing both in Southern Alberta and with Canadians, what are some of those top priorities that you are wanting to tackle the most, that you see as the main issues facing Lethbridgians right now?
Well, first of all, there's the sovereignty issue, and there is the issue with the United States. And I think that is scaring a lot of people. That's what I've heard from talking with folks, is that people are scared. Particularly down here where we're so close to the border, where our economy is so tied up with businesses across the border, where our agri-food and our agricultural sectors are tied so close. So that's a huge concern. That's a huge concern. And I really like the Green mandate on where they stand on sovereignty. I like their ideas. Those can all be found on greenparty.ca. Their whole mission, vision, values, where they stand on sovereignty. I like their ideas. And they're all nice and fresh and ideas, but mostly it's Canada stays Canada. Okay? And I know that's a problem for a lot of folks in Alberta right now with our provincial government. Doesn't really look, we're not really sure where they stand, right? And so that's first issue. The second issue, obviously for me, the reason why I stood up for the Greens is because of the water, because of the concerns around the modernization of the coal policy here in Alberta, the fact that so many people do not want anything to do with it, and that we have two existing mines that are nearby that are polluting the watershed, and they are causing extreme problems for people who need to drink water, just regular water users who don't get to enter into this conversation, by the way. It's only industry. Politics and industry are deciding what we're going to do with our water. Now, for that issue, I believe that we need to bring fresh ideas to the Federation, because those towns in the Crow's Nest Pass, Blairmore, Crow's Nest Pass, are there because of coal. But when we take that monetization of the Eastern Slopes away from them, you have to imagine what 400 jobs means to that area. That means pretty much every able-bodied young person has an ability to have a good wage, a good job with good benefits. And I haven't heard anybody speaking about that and what that means. Now look at another coal town that's north of us, Canmore, Alberta, and look at what has happened for them in the last 50 years being next to a national park and what ecotourism can do. So there certainly is, in my opinion, a job that the Federation can do in order to partner with the provincial government and start this, whether you're looking at it from a private enterprise lens or you're looking at it from a publicly funded lens. There's the West Coast Trail idea. What about the Eastern Slopes Trail? What about interpretive centers? These are all things that require upkeep. They require jobs. They require campground attendance. There's a 400 job thing that we could do there that could offer good jobs to that area that aren't based in destroying the ecosystem. So that's the second. The third is absolutely proportional representation, at least at the very minimum electoral reform. It's ridiculous. It doesn't matter if you are on the left of the spectrum or the right. We just don't have adequate voices for all people in the West. Those elections are decided in Ontario and Quebec. They are not decided here. And I think the reason why so many Albertans, having grown up and spent most of my life in this province, I think the majority of Albertans flock to the Conservative Party because they are so angry, right? It's all we have. So until we get electoral reform, which was promised by the Liberals in 2015, I don't see how the West will ever be anything but angry. And I hate coming from that perspective. So.
Let's talk about those three issues that you mentioned. The first, of course, being the situation with the United States. And provincially here, we have Premier Daniel Smith, who is very much an advocate of not placing restrictions on shipping our energy products, especially oil and gas, to the States, specifically on the issue of energy to the States and the threat that you say that Albertans and Canadians are facing now in terms of sovereignty. What do you think is the correct method in terms of how we export our energy? Do we go abroad internationally, or do we lift our interprovincial trade barriers? What is sort of the method that you choose that is the more clean, sufficient way to get these products out there?
You're talking about our heavy oil here in Alberta. I think we'll probably see another pipeline, an investment from the federal government in another pipeline to the West Coast. It doesn't make any kind of economic sense to go east unless, of course, Europeans pay for it, and I don't think they want it. And coming from an environmental perspective, I would say that I would prefer to see a national electricity grid, and I would like to see us join regionally. I think BC and us could really share between wind and hydro, that it would make things a lot cheaper for folks. So I prefer that side, but I think we will see another pipeline out to the coast, which is going to cause all kinds of problems. You know, that's a problem there. I think that we have in Alberta, we have a huge bargaining chip to stop this. And I think that's the trouble with the rest of the country, looking at Alberta going, why wouldn't we use this as a country, as a federation? Why wouldn't we use this as bargaining chip? And I know that Albertans are really worried about that. I know they are, and it's a very difficult conversation. And I'm hoping that we can nationalize a lot of our industries. But when it comes to oil and gas, I'm not a huge proponent of continuing to grow that sector. I would like to see other sectors grown instead.
As we see, we can actually talk about one of the candidates that you're facing, Liberal candidate Chris Spearman, who, as you touched on earlier about coal mining here in Alberta, is a big advocate in stopping the Grassy Mountain project that has big concerns on selenium in the Old Man watershed and whatnot. What have been your thoughts on the whole process on that project?
On the Grassy Mountain project?
The Grassy Mountain, yeah.
Yeah, basically what we've seen is a complete lack of transparency from our government. Complete lack of transparency. It's my understanding, I went to the coal panel on March 5th, and it's my understanding from the toxicologist that was there that she was there because the Alberta scientists that are working on our water are not permitted to go. They're not permitted to go in front of the public and answer questions to the public because their jobs rely on them obeying, I guess, the provincial government. Basically, I've followed this for quite a while. I actually got in touch with Elizabeth May in 21 about it because I was basically what I get in response to the coal mine, and it doesn't matter if it's Rachel Thomas or if it's Brian Jean or if I haven't heard back from Nathan Neudorf, but whoever I contact about this, whether it's the federal level or the provincial level, the response is always, Canada has the highest environmental standards in the world. But that's not answering the question about selenium. And as far as we know at this point, there is no technology or study that will remove selenium adequately from the water so that there isn't a problem in the water. And in Lethbridge, I know our water treatment is facing an age problem. I think that the water treatment plant needs to be replaced, and there is no way to remove it at this point. They can't do it in Tech, and they certainly haven't done it up in Grand Cache. So we are facing existential crisis, and not just because of the quality of the water, but because of the quantity that coal mines would use. So, but let it be known that there isn't a coal mine application. Right now, it's an exploratory application. So those of us on the side fighting it are really worried about it. We're worried about that application being approved by the AER and what comes next, because behind Grassy Mountain there's also Tent Mountain that they want to revive as well. And we just don't have the water. I mean, whether or not it's clean coming out of there, we just don't have the water for it.
What have been your thoughts? There's been a lot of talk about tariffs, not just from the States, but especially from China. As we see, there is a 100% tariff that we've seen placed on canola, meal and oil, and there's a possibility of canola seeds being tariffed, which could be a big hit to the agriculture industry here in southern Alberta. In terms of working our way around this, what have been your thoughts on the whole issue?
Oh, I'm not versed in that. I have a friend who actually works in ag and does sell canola, and they had a terrible week a couple weeks ago. This whole posturing by governments around the world and using tariffs, whether it's my understanding that the canola tariffs have come because we placed 100% tariffs on the EVs. And if we start there, as the impetus to how this started, then I can tell you that I'm not pleased about that. The protectionism of the car industry in Canada and not allowing regular Canadians to get a low-priced electric vehicle that they can use in their cities. At $10,000, you can't even get you can't get a gas-powered vehicle for $10,000.
So it sounds like you support the idea of Canadians having the ability to buy Chinese EVs.
The Chinese EVs, Mexican EVs are coming out pretty soon. It's a controversial issue. It's really controversial as a Westerner, particularly when most of our auto industry is out east. But yeah, I would like to see more free trade when it comes to fighting the environmental crisis. And I think that particularly urban use of electric vehicles is one of the steps to get there.
So let's talk about the campaign and race that you're currently in and sort of the opponents that you're currently facing. Rachel Thomas, she's running for her 4th term. She's been popular. Chris Spearman, former mayor, he's also popular with a lot of the seniors, I believe, in the area. You have other candidates from the PPC and
Nathan Svoboda.
Nathan Svoboda, the NDP. I was like, I had to tip my tongue. But in terms of your race, what do you find that you would do differently to represent Lethbridgians on a federal level?
Oh, that's a great question. And I have to tell you, I think having looked at the races from the last 3 elections, it's pretty clear that the NDP and the Liberals together go anywhere from 35 to 40% of the vote. And the Conservative vote for Rachel Thomas, who has been in this position for 10 years, has gone anywhere from 55 to 65% of the vote. As for the Greens, doesn't matter if it's nationally or if it's locally, we tend to get about 3%, a consistent 3%. So as for my opponents, I'm really pleased with the candidates that have come out. I'm pleased with the amount of people who have stepped up. I'm pleased to see that people are engaged in this and concerned about it. I know Chris and I know Nathan. I think they're working for great reasons. I've never met Rachel, and I feel honestly that those of us that are constantly fighting have to step up and have to prove ourselves a little bit more than, say, Mrs. Thomas does. That she, it's been my understanding that she doesn't like to go to debates, that she doesn't like to come out in public when debating. So I would like to see her at the debates. I hope she's there. I'd like to see a lot of voters who want to see change at the debates, and I'd like to see issues on the table and how everybody would face it. Yeah, but I'm really pleased with the stock of candidates.
So what can we expect in the next steps of your campaign ahead of the vote, and what could we look forward to as you in this race?
Well, I entered this with kind of the firm idea that I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to run signs, and I wasn't going to run flyers. Those things from folks that I know, it bothers them. The waste bothers them. But I have had a lot of requests for signs, so I know we have some storage of past election signs for the Greens up in Calgary, so I'm going to see if I can get my hands on those. But as far as I go, I am looking forward to the debates coming up. The first one is on next Tuesday, and then the following week it's Coaldale's on Monday, and I believe the library's on Wednesday. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to really representing for folks who want some real change and who want a focus on the environment. But I am available. You can find me as a candidate on greenparty.ca, and my email is there. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, my campaign is kind of around debates. We're looking at an event, but we'll just have to see. We'll have to see.
Amber Murray, Green Party candidate for the Lethbridge federal riding. Thank you so much for coming to our studio today. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.